While searching for her missing brother, a seemingly average American woman encounters international shadow play on a journey to Hong Kong in a suspenseful thriller written by New York Times bestselling author Christopher Rice, entitled The Moonlit Earth. And Christopher joins us today to talk about his new book. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
It's good to be here in an actual newsroom. This is very exciting.
Yeah.
It's like the stuff I write about.
Cool. Well, you could come and do research here if you...
If I'm nice during this interview.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see how it goes then.
Yeah. So, your main character, Megan, she's straight, unmarried, and maybe a little bit unlucky, but she's very smart.
Yeah, she is. She is very smart, and I think it's interesting in contemporary thrillers today, there are very few examples of very smart heroines who aren't either a forensic pathologist, a forensic psychiatrist, or the assistant to a forensic pathologist or a forensic psychiatrist. So it's been interesting to explore the world of writing from not necessarily a female's point of view, but a female's perspective. I wrote a piece that went up on the Daily Beast that was about the female stereotypes in thrillers that I really don't like and didn't want to do in this book. And that's generated a lot of attention, so that's been very fun. But, Megan is really... You don't want to say she has a heart of gold, but she is a do-gooder, as one critic described her. She worked for a nonprofit in San Francisco before she lost her job. She's come home to this very wealthy beach town where she grew up, but she never really had as much money as anyone else. Her cousin did. So she occupies this strange sort of netherworld, like a lot of my characters do, where they feel like they have this perspective on this very rarefied world, but they don't necessarily belong to it.
So with the title, The Moonlit Earth, is that perhaps maybe a symbol for how we're all walking through shadows, maybe not looking at things in a bright light, and maybe she's putting a bright light on, at least shining a light and seeing what's there?
Yeah, I mean, I think she says exactly those things late in the novel after she's really sort of been through the ringer a little. She says, I feel like I've been walking on a moonlit earth and all I've been seeing are shadows and blurry lines, and now I see cracks and angles and blood. And it's interesting because when people first hear the title, The Moonlit Earth, they think that the moonlit earth itself is actually a clearer perspective, whereas I kind of take the opposite definition. It's more shadowy. It looks simpler and cleaner than it actually is because so much is hidden from view or it isn't exposed. And so that was really, it's interesting because that title came to me before I ever attached any meaning or metaphor to it. I just thought it sounded cool.
It does.
Well, thank you. I've been told even people who don't like my books like my titles. So that's, I'm somewhere, right?
Right. Well, speaking of somewhere, fifth book in 10 years. Do you ever get writer's block?
No.
No.
But I have to say, my experience of anything that feels remotely like the beginnings of writer's block is that I have raised the stakes too high. Writer's block for me, or the first flickerings of it, come when I'm thinking about what the critics are going to think rather than what I'm going to think. The best piece of advice that my mother ever gave me was write the book you want to read, period. And so that's where I try to stay. And I feel whenever I deviate from that is when things start to get crazy or squirrely. I'm at a loss for the right word, but when I start to get too anxious about the result as opposed to the process, that's when things are bad. And I think just reminding myself, I'm doing this for me, I have no idea how it's going to turn out, I don't know if anyone's even going to like it, and trying to stay in that space.
Your mother's also an author, Anne Rice, who I've noticed is very prolific on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. How is it to have your mother just really out there in that way?
Well, it's really interesting because Mom didn't have email until a few years ago, and then she didn't really even know what Amazon.com was until she went on and started reading her customer reviews. So that was interesting, and so she's come to this very late, but she's come to it with great gusto. I mean, her self-marketing on Facebook is something I look to as an example. She's done kind of an amazing job with that. And publishing being as uncertain as it currently is, those are the types of things that writers are being asked to do. We're asked to promote ourselves kind of on our own in new and innovative ways. And she's really setting an example online with social media.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I emailed your mom.
Oh, did you?
I did. And she writes, Christopher, when are we going to write that big supernatural novel together? Love, Mom.
As soon as we can agree on an idea, I think, is what we're going to do. I have very weird feelings about the supernatural. Probably the only creative difference my mother and I ever had was that I had juggled with the idea, for the obvious marketing reasons, of doing a supernatural novel, if I could get into it, if I could really feel it. And the only paranormal subject that's ever attracted me in any way has been extraterrestrials and aliens, which isn't really the sexiest idea for publishers in movies because they really feel like it's been trod over a great deal. The X-Files kind of went as far as you can go with it. But that's the kind of kooky out there stuff that I like to read about. And then I didn't reveal any of this to Mom, and one day she walked in and said, I'm considering writing an alien novel. And I really lost it. I said, you have vampires, ghosts, mummies, witches, you have got to leave me aliens. And she was sort of like, gosh, okay. And then I really went in the other room and I sat about it and I said, I have no firm plans for an alien novel. You know, if I can be permitted to write thrillers grounded in this plane of reality for the rest of my career, I would really do that, you know. But if she comes at me with a sexy enough idea, who knows? You never know. But so far, we haven't gotten there yet. That's my answer.
Well, I wish you luck with that, and with the Moonlit Earth, which is available now. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.